Welcome, brothers and sisters. This is Will Tell Truth video podcast, and I'm your host, Will Keller. We have a very special guest, my good friend, Dominic Tremblay. Tremblay? Hope I said
Tremblay.
that correct, man.
Yeah,
All right. Real good friend of mine, and we've been getting to know each other really well for a little bit of time now. And he's got a great website with some great information. I hope everyone checks it out. And it's an honor to have him on today to discuss this topic, important topic, one of the most important topics I feel about raising children, conscious parenting for conscious beings. So, brother, how you doing today, man? How you feeling?
very good. I'm glad you invited me. It's an honor and privilege. I feel really humble to have met that the universe put such a great mind like yours in my path, and I'm glad we're having this discussion because we both, are parents, so it's a subject that we both, can really relate with. And there's a lot of things to say, so I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Likewise. Yeah, huge topic. A little bit though. You gave me a bio. I'll read this real quick. So Dominic is a French Canadian teacher of natural law, born and raised in the province of Quebec, Canada. Discovered Mark Passio's work about 2 years ago and started his own website 3 months ago and decided and dedicated to teaching natural law primarily to a French audience. That's great. And you're doing a great job. So, hopefully people go check out your website and check out your videos. You have videos both in French and in English too. So that's excellent.
Yeah, I'm trying to, my niche is sort of the a French audience, but since I'm bilingual, I'm also, trying to reach everyone, even in English. But I saw that there wasn't much teaching of natural law in French, so I decided I gotta do it, man. I gotta do it. I cannot have, gathered all this knowledge and trying to, put it into action without being all out with my website and trying to get this information out there to French speaking audience in Paris, France, Belgium, Africa, everywhere, province of Quebec, and there's also French Canadian in Ontario, Saskatchewan, Canada too. So
Yeah, man. The world is the schoolyard. So, let's get out there, let's play, let's learn, let's create. So I love it. I love what you're doing.
yeah, gotta be all over the place, man.
Absolutely. So yeah, so today's topic, we're going to do conscious parenting for conscious beings. Two different words in there, two different meanings, and we're going to touch on that. So our first point is, what does it mean to be conscious? You want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Being conscious is about have a deep knowledge of yourself, a deep knowledge of others, the whole human species, and also the laws and the universe as a whole. And once you gather all this knowledge about the truth about all this truth about yourself, truth about the human species, truth about the universe, then you're uh, you're willing to apply it with your righteous actions
Mm,
to output it. So that's for me. That's what being conscious mean. It's about action and knowledge of the universe, and then you realize that we're just one thing. Actually,
yeah,
we're
absolutely.
just one thing. So if you hurt someone else, actually you hurt yourself. If you hurt the earth, you hurt yourself. It's all we're all one. That's what you realize, and then it kind of motivates you to just output and do the right thing and be a good person, a real good person.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna dive into that, man. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be, a lot of people don't actually think about this. To be conscious, it's to be aware, right? It's awareness. It's a being's ability to recognize patterns internally within themselves with thoughts, emotions, and then actions, and also externally in the environment, what's going on around you, in reality, the events and all that. So it's awareness, and that's why I wanted to start with that word, because this is ultimately the root. If we're parents and we have children, um, the parents have to have a certain level of awareness, for stability, for health and security, and also raising a child or children. And I'm saying raising because that's ultimately what we're doing. We're raising a young being's consciousness. We're raising the consciousness, the level of it. And I personally don't like uh the word parenting, right? Because like when you start breaking it down where it comes from, pair renting, two people renting, and it means like source of product. And then that's a whole different topic where, I mean, we do have, governments today that are claiming ownership on physical beings on your body. So it's like a pair of people renting from the government, from the state, from the controllers. So I actually like stewardship, because that's what we're doing. We don't own our kids. We're guiding them. We're actually mentorship, mentors to our children, stewardship, and definitely so conscious. It's good to have that awareness so we can do things correct and right. And hey, there's no perfection in this realm. I mean, my dad told me, when I was growing up, actually, when I was my daughter was just born, he said, "Look, there's no there's no perfect way to parent. All you can do is take your experiences from childhood and learn from that and make them better and be a better parent than I was." This is what my dad told me. And I like that, and that resonated with me. So to be conscious, to have that awareness, the parents need to take in information. It's good to take in information
Right,
to get
the
a
right
correct
the right
understanding.
information.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right that a parent actually is more than a guide than a owner, because if you want to be if you're a conscious person, you realize that you don't own or your child, and uh, you don't control it, you don't control him or her. It's not about control. If you're conscious, you don't want to control anyone,
Hmm.
especially your child, because actually it's about setting the example also. And if you are not conscious, so that's why, and that's also part of why we're teaching natural law to everyone, so that they could be good parents and they could be a good example for their kids. Because I remember when I was a kid, and my dad, he found me, he caught me like smoking with my friends, and he said, "You shouldn't be smoking." And but he was smoking himself 2 packs a day. So
Mm.
the empowerment comes from doing yourself, you having displaying those behaviors, those right behaviors. If you don't display those behaviors, but you're telling your child to do what you as you say, but as you do, doesn't give you any power on him. Because it's the same thing when my dad was grounding me for this. I said, you're smoking 2 packs a day. How can you ask me not to smoke, or telling me that it's bad?
Yeah.
Doesn't doesn't add up. So it's actually the same with everything. So of course, as parents, we have to be a role model in natural law, and applying themselves, and aligning all our behaviors towards or with natural law, so that we can, be powerful and have strength in our teachings, and so that the kids, they really understand and they fully grasp the all these concepts that are hard to maybe fully grasp if they see you doing it in your daily uh, lives.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you nailed it. Setting the example, and it's young children. They come into this world, almost a blank slate, right? So from 0 to 7 to 8. I think they say 7, but give or take a year or two, they're just soaking up everything that their parents are doing, what they're exposed to. They're just constantly taking it in. They're a sponge. So definitely, setting the example, and and all through, all through them growing up, you got to set the example. That's a really important topic. Yeah.
Absolutely, because there's gonna be also other people around, their aunts, their uncles, their neighbors, people in kindergarten, uh, all the society around it also is gonna play a role in their education. And if so that's why, as a parent, you have to be a really good example, because maybe those people won't be like all bad examples, but they since they are not maybe conscious as much as you may be as a natural teacher, or as just being aware of natural law, then you're gonna always like work against, maybe not against, but understand you have to balance what what the information your kids gonna gather from the outside world,
Yeah.
and what you're teaching it, or him
Absolutely.
or
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It's like there's always two extremes that I've noticed with parents. Like you have the one that's wants to shelter their child, don't let their child know or be exposed to anything that's bad or negative in the world. And that's not the right approach, because ultimately you're putting them in a bubble. It's there's falsities. It's kind of you're giving them an illusion. And then the opposite extreme is um having zero awareness of what you're influencing on your child. I mean, so you're just kind of just giving them free reins. And children are like little mirrors, right? Like I look at my daughter. I got a 7-year-old little girl, and things that she does, it's definitely the cause and effect factor. It's like, okay, she's doing that because she saw me doing that, or mom. They pick up on these behaviors, and just these processes, and it's fun to watch, and it's a really great learning process. It's like it's the student teacher dynamic both ways. It's like children can teach their parents a whole lot, especially about themselves. So
Absolutely, because they are pure. They are pure. They don't have, when they are very young, because my daughter is 2 years and a half. She's a pure mind. She hasn't been altered with all the outside world yet, and not much. So it's yes, of course, it's easier to start with those, but at first you have to be a conscious parent, because of course, as you said, a lot of people, like my neighbor, she's more in a, and there's a lot of people in a fear-based consciousness,
mm,
so they're gonna also push that be those behaviors into their kids, and also the other side, which actually they are parents who doesn't want to be responsible, and then they just let their kid go without taking their responsibilities, and both sides are wrong, because it's about finding a balance between these two, and also not being of course the fear-based consciousness is the worst uh, you know thing to start with, because actually you want to, if you want to be a conscious person, you have to start with love,
Mm,
love-based consciousness. Everything's going to start with love, and that's also part of being conscious. It's deep, have a deep understanding of love, agape love, the
yeah.
love, like that, as I said, uh, we're one. So if you love yourself and you don't love someone else, or you don't love society, like, you don't have to like everyone, but actually you have a deep love for the whole humanity. And that's why we're pushing this information also, because I could like sit on my couch and watch TV and don't give a shit about what people think, or but since I love humanity, I want to raise my child also into that conscious uh, consciousness, love-based consciousness, so that we have the future of humanity. There's hope for this future,
Oh
for our
yeah.
future.
Yeah. That's powerful, right? On the core fundamental level, we're all one. And it's interesting. Children kind of come into this, with the unity consciousness, the oneness already in them. You see, there's no, they're not programmed or conditioned to know prejudice or bias or anything. It's like, I love seeing little kids play on playgrounds. It doesn't matter. They'll play with anybody. It doesn't matter at all. And they're so kind, and and it isn't, and even though the ego does come in at a certain time, the ego has a bad rap. The ego's good on a very controlled level, so we know, I'm gonna drink my kombucha. I'm gonna give it to me and not give it to my dog or someone else. So there's, but also an out of control ego leads to separation. And that, like you said, you want to be in love based consciousness, um, for the greater good. And one thing I want to say, and this is why we started with being a conscious parent, being aware. You have to understand your environment and the events that are going on. For instance, the whole COVID lockdown, quarantine type stuff right now. There's so many people that are in fear-based consciousness. It's like, you have to understand the repercussions on your children that's going to have. That's going to put them in fear-based consciousness. And the young kids are in the programming conditioning stage. So the question is, what are you going to instill in them? What are they going to be programmed with? Are they going to have the tools, to have control over their thoughts, emotions, and their actions? Um, so, and that ultimately is love-based consciousness. So let's get into some of the general responsibilities that a conscious parent um, has to take on with their child or children.
Right. So, of course, it's about guiding your child to make the right choice, to live in accordance with natural law without being too much ostracized by the system. And one of the thing, when I was thinking about our convo this week, what one good thing I think is to watch some movies with your kid, depending on where they are in their development. But because I was thinking of the movie Castaway, with Tom Hanks,
Mm-hmm.
because that was one of the movie that kind of uh, perked things up a little bit in myself. And um, about, for example, you want to teach your kids the intrinsic value of things so that they don't fall for the whole, you know, uh, you gotta be rich, you gotta, your career is the most important thing. Because when I've watched, I think Castaway went out like in 2000 or in 2001, I don't remember, but that movie was really a transforming has been a transforming experience for me because at one point he's on a desert island and the most valuable thing for him is an ice skate. It's not a ton of money. This ton of money could just make a fire maybe for one night with it, and or maybe wipe his ass maybe a few times. But this $100 bill is worthless when you're. So I would like teach my kid like to to see the intrinsic value. So does this item that you want or that you have or you desire as intrinsic value, is it gonna be helpful if you're stuck in a desert island? And that was really transforming because that ice kid, he could like shave him. It was like a mirror. It was a knife. It was at one point also, I think he was like pulling a tooth with it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was the most, and also with the laces, it was like doing all these tools with the laces. So for me, it was like a revelation to see that this ice skate, that he doesn't give a shit, in his daily life was the most valuable thing. So the same thing with gold or whatever, it doesn't have real intrinsic value for your survival. And that's one thing that I want to teach my kid. Same things with gun and gun safety. These have intrinsic value because they are good for self-defense, when the time comes. And if you teach them like to use them wisely, just for self-defense and not for in accordance with the non-aggression principle, all these principles, then you know that's one of the thing I want to push on my kid. The intrinsic value of things,
Mm.
very important, so that she's not like um, sad or depressed if she doesn't have a job, or she doesn't have much money. She's not into that kind of you know these emotions wrongfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, you nailed it. It's ultimately what you value, right? And I love how you brought up intrinsic value because one of the biggest problems is that we, as a society, as the whole, people just give their kids off to, the state, to government, to public schools, but mainly culture. And Terrence McKenna, one of my teachers that I love, he's got the famous quote, right? Culture is not your friend. And that's so true because I mean, just look at culture nowadays. What does it value? And it's always directed to the youth. And it values materialism, stuff that has no intrinsic value. Um, Selfishness, just all these materialistic things. So you're right. It's got to have real intrinsic value, something that you can use, in this physical world for, you know, either you can make food with, you can eat. I call these life skills, right? And I do the same teaching my daughter when we get in the garden how to seed, turn the soil. You know, you see the rewards from cropping, you know, the veggies and stuff off the garden and the fruit. It's like those are intrinsic values. You know, that knowledge, it doesn't even have to be something tangible. It can be knowledge as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And of course, moral value, the principles. And I think one of the greatest things that we could do is teaching our children how to think. And I wanted to get into this. You know, the true education versus indoctrination. Indoctrination meaning, you know, the public school, government schools. I highly recommend people look into John Taylor Gatto's work, um, Dumbing Us Down. He's got tons of books, but he really dives in, and I mean, just that one source alone, you can really understand where the public education system comes from and its goal. Public education or government indoctrination, all it teaches children how to do is what to think, not how to think. And I think as a conscious parent, it is absolutely your goal to teach your children how to think using, you know, the trivium method, critical thinking. That's what these kind of things are. So you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. What the public school system wants is just efficient workers. So that's all they want. They don't want people who think, who know how to think, and who you know, can have the potential of. Because if they know natural law, they know the trivium method, then they will reject that government that teach them. So, like same thing with Socrates. You know, he was teaching the youth to think. You know, to to um, anyway to to be against the government in some ways, you know, so that they would be they would be criticize the government and all the methods, so they would reject the government. And that's
Mm,
why he has been killed also. Same thing with Jesus, who was an anarchist, you know, was against the Roman Empire, and he got killed. He was teaching also these kids, you know, what is what you know, what is he was teaching about natural law, and that's what we're doing too. And the trivium method also is very important and should be in all curriculum, in all schools, in all around the world. I mean, the trivium method being like uh, gathering the right information. So it's about also filtering um, the good versus the wrong information, and for that you have to have a certain, you know, knowledge. But as your filter is it, you know, in alignment with natural law or not?
hmm
You know, is it and first you have to know what's wrong and what's right. And once you know what's wrong and what's right, you can filter that information, and you gather all the information through all the whole life. Actually, you know, it never stop. Gathering the information never stop. But at some point you have enough information, you have enough piece of the puzzle put everywhere in your mind. And then the second step of the trivium is understanding, is making all these you know, putting all these part of the puzzle together so that you have the big picture. And once you have
mm,
that big picture of the world, yourself, the universe, then you can output it into rightful actions. And at some point, if you truly understand, you don't have any choice actually to behave like that. If you understand correctly what natural law means and what the trivium process entails, you don't have any choice of aligning your behaviors to it, because you realize all these things that you can make a difference.
Mm.
You're a vibration. You can you know you realize all the power that you have, and that's also that empowerment that you want to transmit to your kid
Yeah.
through the teaching natural law, teaching the trivium method. But that you're right that the public school, they don't want to teach that to the kids, because that would mean that they would instantly rebel against that system, and it would just the public school system would just crash on itself. You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. Excuse me. It's taking the power away. And like they want workers, they do not want true critical thinking conscious beings that can think for themselves because they'll figure out the scheme, right? So, and it going back to culture, I homeschool, or my daughter's mother and I, we homeschool our daughter, and we have since the beginning. I get the cliche questions when people say, like, oh, well, how's your daughter, doing with this time, with the COVID time and schooling and stuff, distance learning, they call it. And just like, well, we've always been homeschooling, so nothing has changed. It's all good. And parents always question the homeschooling because that's kind of part of the conditioning and programming that they believe that parents can't teach them their kids. It's homeschooling's only for certain type of people, or um, people that have to stay home and stuff. It's like homeschooling is learning 24/7. It's whenever, because in the real world, you're learning lessons all the time at random times. It's all about experiences. So we're not doing, 5, 6 hours in a room, every day. We go out, we experience, show her lessons, she learns lessons and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of beliefs that need to be hashed out for parents. And I think every parent has the ability to teach their children, homeschool their children, even if their work schedule can be conflicting. It can still happen. You just have to get out of the preconceived condition that they think is the public education system. And government does not want that. They do not want parents taking the control and the power and teaching their kids, especially, like you said, the trivium method, which is the trace triva, which is the three-way path to truth discovery. This is the classical liberal arts, liberal, not how we know it today as the left, the political system. Liberal as in liberating, freeing your mind. It is critical thinking, and that process is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And like you said, gathering all the information, processing it, filtering it, and then outputting it in behavior. So um and that's and there's books out there, and there's sources. We're going to talk about this later on. So, but yeah, great information. Let's move over to so we've mentioned natural law. Let's dive into natural law and moral value. And this is ultimately vital information that conscious parents need to know. You need to have an awareness, you need to have the knowledge and the understanding, and apply it, and in yourself as you're raising your children as well, so you can instill it in them. And this is what's going to make your child be a conscious being, con science, A being that truly knows the difference between right and wrong has that information of natural law, moral principles, moral value, which is all natural law. So,
right? Government is mind control, right? So they, of course, they don't want kids to know the truth. They want to just control them into being efficient workers. So that's why they don't want to they don't want to teach the trivium method. They don't want to teach natural law. They just want to control the people, and it's getting more and more obvious with all the censorship that's going on, um, everywhere, everywhere. Now, because before that, it was more covert. I guess the government was, of course, controlling the people, but it was hidden. Now it's just in plain sight. They just
mm,
don't care anymore because they have, like, cranked their control um, a notch, and then it's no longer hidden. It's in plain sight. They're just censoring everything that is not uh, aligned with their truth, but it's actually they're censoring the truth,
mm,
and that's terrible. And as a parent, you have the responsibility to teach the truth and teach moral law, to because moral law actually is the truth
absolutely.
about things, right and wrong, about uh, you know all these principles. And we're going to discuss also the book that Indica Martin made about teaching all these the seven hermetic principles and all these principles of natural law. Same thing with and it's important also with all the violence going on in the world that they know the difference and they know how to apply the principles of self-defense and non-aggression even at
Mm,
a young age. Because in school, I remember when I was in school, and I've discussed it with Chris and Jensen on our last convo. It's a dog eat dog world in school, because all these kids, we they are raised by unconscious parents or irresponsible parents who doesn't who just, like, give the responsibility to the system to raise their kids. They don't want that responsibility because they don't, you know, they have self-loathing. They don't have self-respect. So how can you take your responsibility as a parent if you don't respect yourself?
mm,
You don't love yourself. How can you love a child if you don't
yeah.
have love for yourself? And it's the same thing with all those parents living in fear-based consciousness. They raise their child with, like, putting a mask is very important, and they by their action they are, as you said, the kids are sponges. So they would, if they see their parents, being scared, and they will do the same. It's gonna come natural for them. And that's a very terrible example, and that's why we're you know pushing all this information to the parents out there, so that they assume the responsibility, and they get out of this fear-based consciousness to you know uh, be a loving parent who love himself, so who can love someone else like their own progeny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well said. Yeah. I mean, this is what it's all about. All the shit going on in the world. It's from my take, it's always about the youth. It's always about the next generation, right? It's like, even though, like, we're older, and then our parents and our grandparents, those are the people that um the control system use their energy in their prime, and still is, but they're just the older generation. It's always about conditioning and programming the next generation, and they do that through their parents. It's a perpetual cycle that keeps going on. Their parents take in the current issues and then dish the programming and conditioning right onto their children, and then the cycle repeats. So you're right. It's all about the truth. And I'll dive into this a little bit. So, parents that aren't familiar with natural law or the truth, objective truth, kind of get an understanding. A lot of people say my truth, his truth, your truth. I always bring it back to the 6 and the 9 on the ground, right? One person on one side says it's a 6, the other person standing on the opposite side says it's a 9. That's perception. Those are both correct, but that's not the truth. The truth is natural law. It's the laws of nature that are inherent from creation. Humans did not put these laws there. Electromagnetism, gravity, all the principles of the metaphysical laws, mentalism, polarity, vibration. There's a whole bunch of them, but these are the laws that are in effect eternally. They're binding to all of us. They're immutable and non-man-made. The creator put them here. Same as electromagnetism, gravity, and all the other physical laws. We're talking, when we say natural law, we're talking about, yes, the physical laws, but mainly the metaphysical laws, these laws that govern the energy that human beings output. Therefore, it's the governing dynamics of our actions, our behavior. This is what true karma is: cause and effect. So, and this is the truth, and this is what parents need to be a conscious parent. This is a must. You have to know the truth. You have to know the laws of nature, how they apply to your own psyche and to your internal state, and how they apply in the environment around us, right? That's the awareness, the internal and external awareness. And then we need to teach this to our children, because ultimately, when you know these laws in natural law and objective morality, you know what your rights are. And that's what we're getting to, is that these principles, first things first. And then the kids have their operating system, their foundation, their core of how they operate on a mental plane, which outputs into their emotions and their behavior. They're doing it from a place of principles, right? Objective principles. They know what their rights are. They understand the non-aggression principle. Any behavior that causes harm to another sentient being is a wrongdoing. It's immoral. And then also, being a being, we have our rights, and we have the right to protect ourselves, the self-defense principle. And this is the kind of information the government, the control system, absolutely, hands down, does not want people to know. And especially, they do not want parents to wake up and become conscious of this information, this truth, and teach it to their children, because then they're going to have a real big problem. They're going to have a problem with people becoming aware of their power, and understanding that government is always an immoral system based in violence and slavery. And then it just all collapses from there, because once you understand that, personal ownership, self ownership, and true responsibility. You are responsible for yourself and your actions. And then also knowing the greater good, that we are all one family. So, like you said earlier, harming another is harming yourself. And we're all this beautiful planet, Mother Earth, and it's like it's as above so below, right? Where it's the macro and the micro. We're pretty much in a womb, which is Earth, and we need to raise ourselves, but mainly our children. So a lot of
Right,
good points.
right. And actually, what since it's universal, that means also that it could happen on another planet. Actually, with if there's, but not if there's, on other planets with conscious being able to make the difference between right and wrong, the law of morality or the law of freedom would apply to them also. So
Sure.
it's not just about Earth; it's about the whole universe. And once you understand that, you expand your mind, you expand your consciousness to the whole universe. You realize that this law of freedom, law of morality, that as morality increase, freedom increase, and it's something that it could be uh, kind of easy to teach kids, if I may, because it's easy to see in our world right now that we're living in a world where slavery and mind control and censorship is everywhere. So it's easy to realize that this law of morality, this law of freedom, is indeed really in effect, because you can measure easily the effect in our 3D domain,
Mm,
physical world, and uh, and knowing that also empowers you to 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 wanting to just the to go to the opposite polarity, you know meaning to wanting to increase freedom, increase morality. And that's why we're teaching these concepts and these principles, because we know and we understand that this principle or this law of freedom is in effect, and it's a collective thing. So
mm,
if even though we're you and I are conscious, if as a whole in the aggregate, if we're not conscious enough, then it's gonna have the you're gonna live in a world where slavery is predominant, because it's a collective thing also. It's not just universal, it's a collective thing. So if you just take the herd, we need more a critical mass of people on earth aware of these principles and natural law, if you ever want to change our reality and
mm,
the future of our kids. And the reason the reason if the, you know my kid was one of the reason why I started teaching natural law too, because I realized all these things, and I'm like, okay, I I can do something, and I will do something, uh, so that in maybe 10, 20, 30 years, she couldn't say, Daddy, you knew about it and you didn't do anything for my freedom, and look where we're at right now. But
mm,
I would be able to say, go look at my website, look what I did, look at all the work I tried to wake people up to these principles. So that's also a part of what motivated me. The love for her, not just love for humanity, love for the universe, love for myself, love for her motivated me to start all these teachings. And I'm really devoted to this mission, and it's not gonna stop in 2 weeks. Now that the train is rolling, it's gonna
mm,
I'm all in, man. I'm all in, because it's so important. And I understand Mark Passio's anger lately, like pushing more people into teaching natural law, because we need a critical mass of people, not just for us and for the present moment, but for the future also, for these kids. And that's why we have to teach natural law to these parents, to these adults who are able to understand, who have and we have to push it. So we're planting seeds
Mm.
so that we break the cycle of mind control. We have to break it at some point, and go into the opposite polarity, which is freedom.
You nailed it. I mean, you said the answer right there. And this is why this conversation is so important. People need to be aware of the information so they can teach it to their children. That's the only way that the cycle's going to break. And then, like you said, we're going to make our way up to critical mass, and the tide is going to turn. Yeah, it's so important. And likewise with me, it's I started really just the 0 point is always why, always questioning things. And um right before my daughter was born, I was just questioning my life, me as a person. What am I? This world, what's going on? I had a good amount of awareness, but I was really digging in deep to those big questions. And having a kid is a good starting point for that, because knowing that like you said, you're raising a young being in this world. What have you done to contribute to the world to make it a better place for your child or children? And a lot of people think that they can't make a change. Oh, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. What can I do? That's just the biggest bunch of bullshit, because what it is, that's programming and conditioning. You can make a lot of change. You can improve yourself, and take responsibility, moral responsibility, and then teach this to your children, which has a huge impact, because that's the only way we're going to make a change in the world, is by creating the ripple effect. More and more minds understanding and putting into action um, this knowledge, turning it into wisdom, and creating that ripple effect to kind of sway the tides. So yeah, man, really good points, man. I love what you said. So real quick, we're coming down to the end of the segment. Let's talk about um just information sources. I got a couple books that I want to show the viewers, and also any kind of life skills or skills you like doing with your daughter. Your daughter's 2.5, and so for instance, like gardening is really big, and also foraging. Like I love taking my daughter Violet out and showing her how to identify plants, what plants are edible, and all that kind of stuff. I think those go back to intrinsic value and just kind of life skills. And so yeah, if you have anything that you do now or that you want to do when your daughter's older.
Yeah, at her age, I see a lot of parent that what they do, they're trying to compensate with toys, their lack of responsibility or their lack of love, and so they are not present to their with their kids. So one of the thing I try to do at this age, because she's too young to really fully grasp all these concepts and these principles, but I still try to um, be a good example on just being present, you know, and showing her what love is truly.
Mm,
Love is about caring, and caring is about wanting to be with that kid. So as I try to spend a lot of time with her, and also what I try to do is to, instead of buying a lot of toys, we have toys for her, but I'm trying to make her, increase her creativity by, playing in the garden and making stuff. I'm really a ND person, so I'm building, and I always have a hammer or something in my hand. I'm always building stuff, and I try to, bring her into that creativity, and not just, relying on toys, which is good also. She can play and she can learn a lot with toys, but not like buying a lot of stuff. And I'm not into buying a lot of things. That's why it comes down also to intrinsic value and being creative.
Mm.
And that's why I'm trying to push also when she has a lot of things to draw, or to, to make some cardboard, or make and also at kindergarten they push a lot for this, also the
Hmm.
crafting.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I'm trying to do right now. But the most important thing is, of course, caring and being present at this age. And for the later stages, I have the whole plan, but the main plan is just myself living in accordance with natural law as much as I possibly can, and just showing her the right example. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And by that, it's gonna empower her, of knowing, oh, daddy was, telling me, or was doing this and that. And she's gonna have something to compare with. If she sees something wrong, she's gonna know maybe that's wrong. I like the example that Mark Passios was doing with bullying in school. About who's doing violence. Is it the bully, or the one kid who replies to it? And so all goes to the non-aggression principle versus the self-defense. And it's very important also, because if you don't teach your kid about self-defense, you don't teach your kid about loving themselves and respecting themselves. You're teaching them about self-loathing,
Yeah.
and just making all this. You shouldn't make any aggression, or you shouldn't uh, engage into a fight with anyone at any time. And that's incorrect, because actually there is a time where engaging, or make using the right amount of force to stop someone who initiate an attack towards you is the right thing to do. Because if you truly respect yourself, you're gonna you're gonna defend yourself, just with the right amount of force to stop permanently the ongoing aggression. And
Mm.
that's one thing also I'm gonna teach her early in life. So, because in school, even in first grade, these kids, they can be really cruel with each others. So, um, but I have a plan for each stages of her growth. But we've mainly went through listening to movies also. I think would be a good thing, because you cannot go around. The kids like TV, but if you can steer their interest towards movies who teach great values, like, I think Castaway, for me, it was a true revelation, this movie.
Mm.
So I'm gonna finish on that, because at the end, if you remember, he was like having a lot of problems, like finding food. And at the end, they throw this big party, and they all go, and then he's alone with this huge table, like full of leftovers, like. And he's thinking, I would have survived like 10 15 years with all this food, and it just like
Yeah.
leave it on the table and go away. So that's also a good movie to teach lesson and to to bring your kid into these moral principles.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. That's one thing that I told myself early on when my daughter was really, really young. I said, I'm not going to lie to her about anything. I'm not going to cram certain things about what's going on in the world like down her throat, like just put it right out there. But when she starts asking, because all kids go through that why stage, why this, why that, and my little mini me is like, she gets into the philosopher zone where she's asking like deep questions. It's like, I think one thing that parents can make a big mistake is when they start lying to their children because they're scared they're going to expose them to something evil. So there's correct ways to go about it, but they are never sugarcoat stuff to your kids, never lie to them. Um and yeah, I mean, it's funny. There's been a lot of lessons. Arts and crafts, creativity, these are all great things to do with children. And something that's really important, like you said, self-defense. I mean, we both have daughters, so being a man, and this happens with the opposite sex, right? So boys are going to grow up and they're going to look at women how they looked at their mom, how the mother son relationship was. And then it's the opposite with girls. However their relationship with their father was, that's how their relationship's going to be with boys or men. So yes, setting the example is important. Self-respect and loving yourself, that all goes right in there with self-defense. So some little teenager is not trying to take advantage of your girl. She sees that right off the bat, and does whatever, but also to protect yourself. Really good. Took my daughter to some martial arts classes. She liked it. She just wasn't ready to kind of commit to that. But her and we wrestle, and I show her some techniques and stuff. She's fierce. So, but yeah, it's a fun process. So,
Awesome.
and I think I'll say one thing, and then I'm going to show a couple of these books, and then we can wrap it up too. I think the mother father connection is really important. Um, that both parents have excellent communication about these principles, the truth, morality, natural law, and what's going on in the world. And have these conversations early on and often, and get the communication line dialed in. A lot of parents co-parent. They're not together, they co-parent. So that's the best thing you can do is get these communication lines open, and you know agree, if not educate the other parent on principles and morality and truth. So that's something that's really important.
Right, because it's gonna, if not, it's gonna bring cognitive dissonance to the child because she's gonna hear one thing from her parents, and is gonna hear another thing from her other parent, and then she's gonna have difficulties making a choice. What's wrong, what's right, and maybe she's gonna go for the easiest for her, which usually is the wrong path, because the path of truth is the artist's path, but
Mm.
is the most rewarding also for yourself, for others, and for humanity. But it's hard. We're not gonna lie. It's hard, and all this inner work that you have to do. It's hard too, and that's main reason. Also, I know that you and John White Dogan and all these group are engaging with people also with on the street,
Mhm.
and and people are too afraid, to dig in and to just challenge their conception of the world. So that's a thing also, that being aligned, the two parents being aligned with the education helps, because it kind of creates um, an equilibrium, a whole unison
Mm.
of a vibration between the two parents, and then it's gonna be more easy for the kids to grasp all these concept, and output it into action. But it's all about doing what's right in your actions, because information is one thing, but it's important that and that's why we're working in the minds of the people, so that one day they can realize things, understand, and output it into the right action right now. Action. It's all about it. It's
Yeah.
all about action, because it's it's the behavior at the end that counts. It's not the intention. If you have the intention of making a good kid, but you're not, you know, doing the right behaviors, then it's never gonna work on intention, with good intentions.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. It really it means shit, right? It's like, well, I intended to be a good father, and but it's like, well, you beat your kid left and right. Like, come on, it's like, so you're right. It's all about action. It's all about behavior. And we all, and this is what it is about being a conscious parent. So you don't so you can deal with your own subconscious issues, so you don't pass them on to your children, right? And the goal is to raise in consciousness our children, so they can be conscious beings, so, and in conscience, to know the definitive difference of right and wrong. And that's how we're going to make change. So that's, yeah, man,
Mm.
great points.
And as we said, break that cycle of mind control.
Absolutely.
And so that's why you want to empower with your kids with all these principles of natural law, so that we can one day break the cycle of mind control and get rid of that uh, government, the government institutions, the police. But first, we have to work on the mind of the people and get this information out there as much as we can.
You're right, brother. You're absolutely right. So a few books that I have on hand that can really help with parents. And I did mention earlier John Taylor Gatto. He's got great books. It's a must to really understand what's going on with the parent child dynamic, the public education system, where it comes from, and what it's doing, what its goal is. So, and then this one of my favorites,
Yeah, great book.
Give to Nature and Nature Will Give to You. This is by Indica Martin, and this is a phenomenal book to have for younger kids. It's all about natural law, talks about nature. It's got manifestation. It's got the seven hermetic principles in there. I mean, it's just, the artwork is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Growing a seed germination, just all this stuff in here, man. Really good consciousness. I'll put a
Like,
link in the description. Another one, of course, is the Trivium. There are a few books. I have a couple. This is the Wooden series. Really good. The classical liberal arts of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And trivia means um, the threefold path of truth discovery, which is ultimately critical thinking. And on the third one, this is by Dyreka Claus, says think for yourself. a critical thinking workbook for beginners. This is great for young kids, preteen and teenagers, and it's a workbook. It's got great information in the beginning, and it's really hands-on, and they can get in there. Great for all ages once they can kind of read and write. And yeah, so I'll put some links in the description.
Great, man. Great, man. All good. Always, always nice to talk to you, and it flows very well, and it's always a good time.
Yeah,
And
man.
anytime you invited me, and we're also having these meetings with our natural law teachers group, which is great also every Sunday, and I think we're doing very good thing for the whole group. And last week I was on the hot seat, and it was really a good experience. I took a lot of notes, and I'm gonna step up my game too. And it's all about support and connecting with these people. It's great. It's great. It's making me a better person, better father too. You cannot imagine people, they don't have a clue of the power they have uh, right now. And it's all about, life is about discovering yourself, finding yourself, finding truth about yourself. And once you discover that, you start really being yourself, and wanting the best, or wanting this world to be a better place for everyone, for your child, for your neighbor, for everyone. And you are empowered with that feeling that you can make a difference. You can make a difference, true difference. uh, if you go out of that self-loading, irresponsible mind thinking, mind mindset, and also if you get out of that fear-based consciousness to a love-based consciousness, then we can create order instead of chaos in this world.
Well said, brother. Well said. It's all about your state of mind. It's all about consciousness. Consciousness is pattern recognition. And the only way you're going to increase or raise your consciousness, increase your pattern recognition, is by taking in information so you can recognize the patterns more in detail, more frequently, and then become into alignment as much as possible. So this is what we're doing. We're doing, we're putting out great information, and I'm really glad that it's my honor to have you on as my guest, and we're going to do lots of shows and talk often. So this is great. Why don't you talk about your website, and I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, my website mainly in French, but I'm trying to also translate a lot of PowerPoint slide from Mark Passio slide, or presentations, or from memes that I see on. I try to put them, and also I have a podcast. I have videos. I'm trying to put all these information. My website, www.vérité ou conséquences. So, ou c'est OU, vérité ou conséquences. We're gonna put the link below. .com, my website, and I'm trying to put every week, trying to step up my game with the help of my good friend like you, good friends. So thank you for inviting me. Anytime, brother.
Sounds good, bro. Appreciate it, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thanks for tuning in to Will Tell Truth video podcast. Remember to seek truth and speak truth. See you next time. Gia.